from Xiamen, where we are getting some fresh shots, is the leaders of all 5 nations and also of the BRICS Plus are presently having a photo opportunity. We, of course, are seeing Mexican President and also the Thai Prime Minister who was present in that photo opportunity of the BRICS Summit, which is presently underway. And we'll, of course, be getting you details of this story as it continues to unfold in Xiamen. And this is a key and a historic sort of a summit in many ways. It's not just in terms of trade and business that this particular meeting has its importance, but also in many other geostrategic ways as well. Because remember, it is countries from Asia, Africa and South America, one from South America and one from Africa, that is Brazil and South Africa, and also the giants, the Asian giants, China, India, and also Russia, who are a part of the BRICS Summit. And this time, of course, there are other nations as well, 5 other nations. It is Mexico, Thailand, Tajikistan, Egypt, who have been invited as part of the BRICS Plus. Now, this, of course, is being seen as an attempt by China to increase its influence within the BRICS grouping. And it is being said that by trying to induct more members in, by expanding the membership of BRICS in terms of BRICS Plus, this is only to enlarge the sphere of influence of the BRICS Summit. These are live visuals that we are getting from Xiamen, where the leaders of all the nations who are present at this point of time have arrived. And we expect the talks to begin shortly, the bilateral talks between the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Xi Jinping will take place roughly at about 10 a.m. Indian time, is what we've been given to understand. So in another 2 hours and 15 minutes, we expect the Indian Prime Minister and the Chinese Premier to be holding bilateral talks. But there are several other agreements, there are several other trade and business-related deals that are being talked about. For instance, yesterday when President Xi Jinping addressed the BRICS Summit, he spoke essentially about protectionism and how much of a challenge it has been in terms of world trade and how protectionism needed to be dealt with to take business forward across the world. Right, and my colleague Ramesh Ramachandran, who is presently in Xiamen and tracking all the details, is still with us. Ramesh, if I could come back to you on this, we are seeing these live shots of the leaders who have now gathered at the center where the talks are to be held. We see this, a great photo op of sorts. We see President Xi in the center, Prime Minister Modi, Vladimir Putin, all walking side by side. This, of course, is a key meet. The big powers, China, Russia, India, they're all there. And this, of course, is going to be an important bit of a talk. Give us a sense of what's actually the mood like out there. Because, in many ways, this is, of course, a meet which has the 2 great economies at this point of time in the world.
Sound check.
Right, we'll connect with my colleague Ramesh Ramachandran in just a bit, but these are live shots that we are getting from Xiamen as the leaders come and take their place in this particular hall where the talks will get underway in just a bit. So we also expect the BRICS leaders to address in a short time from now. We see the Chinese Premier speaking at this point of time in Xiamen. And also, Ramesh, if I could now come back to you, being told that we have Ramesh Ramachandran with us. This, of course, is a very key meet. And considering the fact that the 2 great big economies, India, China, and also Russia, who are taking part in this summit. Give us a mood of what is being expected, because earlier it was only the G5, the G20, which would be looked at with a lot of interest. But now BRICS, because of the big nature of the economies of India and China, is also something that is being looked across very, very closely across the world.
Mohammed, essentially the idea of BRICS, as I said before, was conceived almost 17 years ago in the year 2001. And since then, we've seen BRICS as a grouping gain traction. And we've seen many summits happen annually since 2009. And in 2011, South Africa joined the BRICS grouping to become a 5-member regional organization, global organization at that. And today, we've seen the concluding day of the 9th BRICS Summit here in Xiamen. With that said, essentially what the BRICS leaders are trying to achieve here is not to overthrow the existing contemporary world order, but to make it more fair and distributive, as if you can put it that way. And the idea is not to remain just a talk shop, but to have an actionable agenda which can benefit all the 5 countries and the countries in their respective regions. And to discuss more on this issue, I'm now joined by Atul Aneja, who writes for the Hindu newspaper and who is based in Beijing. Good morning to you. And today is the concluding day of the 3-day BRICS Summit. Yeah. When you look back at the deliberations here of the last couple of days, on balance, what would your sense be as to how much of success has it been for India in particular?
Well, if you talk India specifically, then of course the joint declaration which came yesterday, I think that is something which India would feel quite vindicated and happy about because of the specific mention of the terror groups in the BRICS, which was resisted to in the Goa summit, if you recall. So this is something new. Now the question is that will there be a follow-up to this in the sense of actually banning specific individuals in the UN 1267 committee? Now that's something which is going to be tested. But if that happens, that's going to be a big achievement. I was also looking at why did the Chinese this time not resist? I mean, it's an important question and needs an explanation.
Absolutely, yeah.
And what I would be looking for would be that is there a change in strategic thinking from the Chinese part in terms of engaging India? They have done it with the Russians earlier. So will they do the same and they settle the entire border issue with the Russians and concede a lot of territory because they had made a strategic decision to engage with Russia? This happened during Jiang Zemin's time. Are we reaching that point of inflection, and is this summit a reflection and the joint statement a reflection of that? That is something which is to be tested and to be seen. And going forward, the meeting between President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Modi is going to be very interesting in the direction it takes. So the takeaways for India, I think, are positive and substantial but need to be tested. As regards the BRICS as an organization, we've had some new ideas that moves to the next level. I think the institutionalization of the BRICS is the most important. The new development bank has come. Right. So that is a major institution that has been created. But if you recall President Xi Jinping's speech, the trade among the BRICS leaders is very paltry, though they occupy a major chunk of the global GDP. So that needs to be progressed, and we'll see whether that happens from here onwards. The idea of linking the emerging economies with the developing countries is also an interesting one. Although in Goa we had the BIMSTEC and India sort of inviting them, so BRICS Plus was already there, but it's been given a specific name here, which each host country deciding to engage the countries it wants to. So we will that particular linkage between the emerging and the developing economies is an interesting one. Now the challenge for the BRICS is that how do you actually manage it and collaborate? I think the canvas is very wide. If you're going to be sort of the engines of the next wave of globalization, which the BRICS aspire to be, or at least the Chinese think the BRICS should be moving in that direction.